Amazon Prime Video dropped Episode 3 of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power today, September 9th, as viewers learnt what happened to elf warrior Arondir, played by Ishmael Cruz Cordova, after he was captured. Fans also saw the next leg of Galadriel's, Morfydd Clark, journey as she found herself in the island kingdom of Numenor. The episode introduced a new character called Adar, Joseph Mawle, who appears to be a creation of the show and whose face was obscured, so viewers weren't able to see his face. Warning: this article contains spoilers from the Rings of Power Episode 3. Who is Adar in Rings of Power? There has been much speculation about Adar, which means father in Elvish, after he was brought into the story as a high-ranking orc in the Southlands. Arondir spoke to his fellow elf prisoners about the orcs and the underground passage they built, which reached to Hordern, and perhaps even beyond. The three elves slowly started to piece together what the orcs were up to, realizing they were ransacking villages in search of something, and the growing realization Morgoth had a successor. The orcs referred to this new leader as Adar, with Revion, Simon Merrills, telling Arondir, Sauron had many names in days of old. Perhaps this is one of them. There is more at work here than we can see. In the show, Adar looks like he had elven features but also orc-like features, particularly his hand, which would suggest some sort of corruption. According to J.R.R. Tolkien's lore, elves cannot become orcs, but Adar seemed to suggest otherwise, and there could be some loopholes created by the Rings of Power writers to make this so. Many have taken to Reddit to discuss Adar, with user Edible Entanglement posting, "Adar is Anatar, so Sauron will be present and active." That's really cool. It was pretty obvious from the armor and hair, so not sure the blur effect was needed at all. Sick. Again, this theory suggests Sauron is disguising himself as the Lord of Gifts Anatar, but Adar is far from a benevolent figure, who is in the company of orcs, and seems unlikely to be so. While Ilansur wrote, "Orcs look great," some of the action scenes with Arondir were weird. Not a huge fan of leaving Adar's face as a blurred cliffhanger. I think it would have been more interesting to reveal it then cut to black. Another user called Region Important 6568 wrote, "That last shot really makes me think that Adar is the first elf that was tortured and corrupted, and his face is gonna be fucked up as a result." They have been extremely clever in my opinion with how they've brought certain lore into this world, so I think having the original tortured elf would be right up the showrunner's alley. Finally, user Fridamobo said, "Adar definitely looked more like an elf than any of the other orcs. The blurriness obscured his facial features, but it seems like he is scarred or something along those lines, which would line up with the theory of him being a tortured elf." Should be some interesting interactions between Adar and Arondir going forward, hopefully. Tolkien did write about the Dark Elf in his work, but the meaning appears to be ambiguous. The term is also used to refer to Eol, an elf of Nan Elmeth, who met a tragic end. The Tolkien Gateway goes on to say, usually the reference of a dark elf, Moradhel in Sindarin, simply refers to an elf who has not seen the light of Aman, but the concept of a darkened elf would be one that may have been corrupted by Morgoth. Tolkien liked this concept as an explanation for his superb and insidious smithcraft, which was written in a margin notavial story, but he chose instead to consider him more likely acquainted with the dwarves. Could the writers of Rings of Power use this ambiguity to create something new within Tolkien's world? For now, it looks like fans will have to wait and see, with more to be revealed in the next episode, with Adar's identity unveiled after Sauron's mark was explained. The Rings of Power airs weekly on Amazon Prime Video on Fridays.